Hello and welcome to another episode of Real Chiropractic Story. I'm your host, Dr. Greg Gerstin, and here we are developing a library of chiropractic stories so that when someone says chiropractic isn't for me, we can tap into that specific story that matches their specific life, and they can hear someone talking about how their life has changed and where it's come from. You know, for so many people, they don't know what chiropractic can wind up doing. So we're recording those stories. If you or someone you know has had a chiropractic story that's helped to change their life, please reach out to me. You can find me on the internet. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I'm Dr. Greg Gerstin, and I would love to connect with you to wind up sharing your story. If you like these stories, give them a thumbs up. Give them a 5-star review on all the podcatchers so that more people can wind up seeing these stories. Now today, I am really excited for our guest. He's an author. He's a healer. He's been a leader in chiropractic, changing people's lives for over the last 30 years. But he's known since he was in the 7th grade that his life's work would be to serve humanity the chiropractic way. Today, I have with me Dr. James Terrence, or most people know him as Terry McCoskey. And he's going to share with us his real chiropractic story. Now, if you know anything about him or seen him around or been around him, you know that this conversation is not only going to be educational, but it is going to be really entertaining. If you're wondering why, just check out his Facebook page. He and his wife have got some of the funnest games, skits, and performances that you are surely not going to want to miss. Now, what I want to do is dive right into the story and introduce everyone to Dr. Terry.
Good day, everybody.
Hey.
Where are we going from here?
Thank you so much for joining me and spending some time with me this afternoon. I really appreciate it.
It is my pleasure. It's a Friday afternoon. Here's what I also know. It's Michelle's birthday. So I know that I get to be the guest on your wife's. I'm thrilled by and honored.
Well,
for a couple of big pairs of croissants, but I didn't make the trip on the way home.
well,
No, I saw your post this morning, and I thought, how do I get some croissant? It didn't happen.
Yep.
But I'm blessed. I'm thankful to be here with you.
And I appreciate the gesture. Yes, we're going to go croissantless this birthday, but we'll be back to it on the next one. Now, Terry, what I always love our guests to do when we first get started is to share with our listeners a little bit more about themselves so that people know who you are.
My mom, I got into chiropractic because my mom had taken a job as a staff person grade 4. And so as part of her compensation plan or her care as a result of being an employee in that practice, my brother and my dad and we started under chiropractic care. So I'm in the 4th grade. And this is back in the time where it was actually safe to walk home from school. So I would kind of walk home from school and his office was kind of on the way, sitting in his reception space, finishing my homework while my mom finished her workday. And then we, wrap it up and head to the house. So I got to see for several years, just people coming and going, and they would come into that practice one way and they would leave it differently. And I knew it was good. And then we started getting adjusted. And so I knew what he did. And I knew probably by the going to be when I grew up what chiropractic was necessarily. He didn't give me the big idea and share with me all the ins and outs of the philosophy of what we do. It was easy to see that help everybody. If he couldn't help them, he didn't keep them. He didn't use any drugs or do any surgery. He seemed to make a decent living for himself and his family. He set his own hours. So I knew as a much younger person this was something that I was going to pursue as an adult. So I went, finished my high school. Everything I did from 7th grade on was knowing I was going to be a chiropractor. Finished high school, went to the Ohio State University, got my undergraduate things out of the way. I know. I don't know why I take. It's because I'm on the football field. I take a lot. So I didn't have didn't feel ready to go to chiropractic school after my undergraduate stuff was out of the way. So I was going to take a year off and earn some money before I moved to Davenport, Iowa, which seemed like it would be, in the middle of nowhere, and I would have to wash my clothes in a creek and grow my own food and all that. So I was going to take a year off and earn some cash. And what happened was, I had not yet gone back to chiropractic, bartending, and I was making great money. I was racing bicycles. I was in the shape of my life, traveling a little bit, having a good time. And then I met this person, this woman, who said, "What are you going to be when you grow up?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to go to chiropractic school, eventually." And I said, "I don't know. I'll get around to it." Well, long story short, 9 months later, she's my wife now. Next month, 34 years.
Congratulations.
So we were married for less than a year in Davenport, Iowa, so I could start chiropractic school. 89 and moved to Fairborn, Ohio, which is where we still live. So we've been living and serving and practicing in Fairborn now for just over 30 years. 3 daughters, 3 son-in-laws, 2 grandsons later. We have a wonderful life, and I owe most, if not all of it, to chiropractic.
Wow. Well, that's a pretty amazing story, and there's a lot to dive into and digest on it. I mean, you spent 4 years when you were young sitting in a reception room of a chiropractor's office and watching people come in and out. What would you say was maybe one of the most surprising or inspiring stories that you might remember from that time of someone going through care?
Well, my dad is probably that best story. My dad was he worked in a factory where they build Kenworth trucks. And now he was not the pick weight. He smoked 2 packs of cigarettes every day. We didn't, pay a lot of attention to nutrition at that point in our lives. But that guy introduced my dad into a way of at least managing chronic pain and staying in reasonably comfortable and functional. And that kept food on our table. My dad, probably one of the better stories, just from a pain management standpoint, was my own dad. And so, like I said, anytime you can put somebody back into the game without having to support them with extra chemistry or whatever, it's going to get sure. And but again, you would watch people talking about allergies that aren't there anymore, or you would see people that were having trouble maybe conceiving. So I'm just sitting in the corner kind of doing my homework, and you just get to absorb information from lots of different directions. He took great care of his staff and his team. That was another thing that I admired out of him. So it was an easy call for me. And now when I look back on it, in all honesty, I don't feel like I picked this. I feel like this picked me. Mm-hmm. God's way of saying, "Hey, I need you to just kind of pay attention so we can get it done." Mm-hmm. So, and that's how we look at it.
Entirely. Now, can I ask, do you play it forward with your staff, and do you take care of them and their family as a part of their employment?
Oh, without question. 3 of the people that I currently take or have on my staff were patients of mine before they were employees. So I got to interview them for a long time before, I know their character, I know their work ethic, I know their morals and standards. So, and then our 4th staff is somebody that I also took. Actually, all 4 of them were patients before they were employees. So we've got a good family of staff support for me, and they basically tell me what to do, and I just shut up and do it.
That takes a lot of skill, to shut up and do what they tell them, because when you've developed a team that can guide you through your day, that has almost as much to do with you as it does with them.
And this is kind of breaking up, but I think what you said was something about referencing my staff and my team. Try it one more time.
It winds up showing so much more even about you than your staff, to be able to take a step back and allow for them to guide you through the day and take on the leadership roles so that you can do the one thing that you've been innately programmed to do and had a calling to do since you were in the 7th grade.
Well, I learned a long time ago, and not everybody has fit that mold for my staff, but I learned a long time ago that it's easier to bring on smart people who are already nice, smart people who aren't already nice.
Hmm.
To run a program on the computer. And so one of my primary hiring criteria has always been bring on good people. They can learn the skill set, but they're just as much a part of my practice, or they're just as important to our patient care as I am. So everything we do from the time we open the door till the time we shut the door at the end of the day, they understand their role in it. They understand that people don't just come to see me; they come for the experience in our practice, and yeah, they're what they tell me to. Our day goes the time.
That is such a brilliant piece of wisdom that all people who are listening out there, whether they're employed or not, can wind up really appreciating, because you're right. Bringing on smart people who are nice is really an important characteristic, because the skills can always be taught for the work that you wind up doing.
My primary staff person has been with me 23 years now.
Wow, that's absolutely amazing. And are you married to them?
She came to us. She was a patient in our practice. Appreciated in working 60 hours a week as a payroll specialist for a trucking company. She did not like what she was doing. She had two small boys that she was trying to raise as well. And she actually came to me and said, if you ever need anybody to work here, I want to know. And it wasn't 2 weeks later that connection was made, and she's been with me ever since. So she was great with patient care. She got great results with what we do. She's awesome at helping share it with the people that we serve. And she runs the place like a staff sergeant. I just got to shut up and go where paid. So
can you clone her and send me one? That does sound absolutely amazing, and I'm going to look to follow in your footsteps in developing that, looking for smart people that are nice to wind up filling in the roles and ideas. Now, you mentioned this thing called the big idea. What is that?
Oh, the big idea. If you want to put it, the big idea in a nutshell, it's going to revolve around the primary philosophical tenets of chiropractic. The big idea has to do with the fact that there's an intelligence in the universe. And whether you think that's from a loving creator who knows every hair on your head, or whether you think it's a big explosion in the universe a billion years ago, the universe is really, really hardwired. Like birds always know which way is south for the winter. And tomato seeds only grow tomato plants. You can't get apples out of a tomato seed. So there's an intelligence in the universe. Different segments. There's a universal intelligence, there's an innate intelligence, and there's an educated intelligence. And the universal intelligence is what kind of creates us. The innate intelligence is what guides the processes inside of all living organisms. And the educated intelligence is our experience that we acquire along our lives. You can combine those three things, or in your spiritual life, or in the way you orchestrate your family. When you understand that there's something bigger than you, and you can kind of tap into that, it has a way of making life easier. The innate intelligence is where we're going to focus in chiropractic, because that innate intelligence is what flows from the brain through the nerve system and animates us. Innate intelligence aren't alive anymore. And so any gets in the way of that is going to sabotage that person's health potential. So really what we're doing in chiropractic, the big idea, is to make sure that intelligence is able to flow through that person's life as freely as possible, so that they live their best possible life and live to their fullest potential. How was that?
That was awesome. And that was so, it made it seem so simple and so well put together. Have you ever told that to someone before?
No. In fact, you just kind of asked me that on the fly.
Well, that was fantastic.
We haven't had these conversations before, certainly. But when you can, the better we grasp that, especially in today's setting, we're having this, and I don't know when this will broadcast, but we're having this pandemic. And I think part of the challenge that we're experiencing as a culture, as a globe, is that we're being taught or trained to ignore the intelligence in the universe. And so I got a problem with that. We're being led to believe certain things that may or may not be truthful to ignore the intelligence in the body. We're being asked to ignore the intelligence in the universe around us. And we're being asked to override it in ways that may or may not be beneficial for the future of the person involved or the planet involved. So, you know, we're having this conversation at a really opportune time, I think.
Mm-hmm. Now, what are some ways that you might see right now specifically that we're getting in the way of the universal intelligence?
Well, universal intelligence, again, when you talk about the way things are orchestrated, universal intelligence is in all things, but innate intelligence is only going to be in living things. So, for example, this coffee cup is made up of similar molecules to your eyeglasses or your t-shirt or your skin. The molecules are just arranged in a different way. And this is not animate. This is inanimate. This is animate. And so universal forces are going to be destructive in nature, because if I set this down and let a bunch of time go by, the cup would weather. It would begin to break down, because the forces in the universe are going to break it down. That's why your house needs painted periodically. That's why your tires need replaced periodically, because universal forces can tend to be disruptive or destructive. It's the innate things that, you know, if you cut your finger, it doesn't stay cut. Obviously, it's going to heal itself and restore itself. So the innate intelligence inside of us is what separates animate things from inanimate things. Does that help? Yeah. But if we're going to be taught to ignore, well, viruses, for example, are viruses living things or non-living things?
Well, they're living.
And if you give them a right place to live, what will they do?
Thrive and flourish.
They'll move in and they'll set up shop. But just like every other organism on the planet, they've got to have food and they've got to have shelter. And if you provide it, they just stay. So our goal is to create an environment in here that is not favorable to the thriving of those organisms. It's not about kill the virus. It's about let the intelligence take care of good germs and bad germs. It's being suppressed for any stress, whether it's because of chemistry, because of emotional instability, thing that creates stress in the system to defend itself. And then we set up a shop that's good for, you know, germs and crud and things that wouldn't otherwise stay to move in and set up shop. Ignore that. And you know, if everybody really understood that the body they're living in is geared for success, it's geared to restore itself and regulate itself from the inside out. It needs certain things, right? You got to feed it. You got to make sure it's well watered. You got to make sure it gets good rest. You want to minimize anything that's toxic to it. But the reality is it's engineered to tell the difference between good germs, difference between too much heat, not enough sun, and we're this germ thing. I'm not sure it's to our advantage.
That was absolutely brilliant. I absolutely loved it. Now, that is so true, and we are so missing it. Keeping the environment in that right place versus winding up secluding the environment or not providing it. Now, what would, let's say, the 4 things that you're telling your patients be so that they can build that environment into the place that is really good at determining the good and the bad germs and getting rid of the bad germs and keeping the good germs?
Well, first of all, you're not going to, it's not within our capacity to eliminate the germs. You keep to get these germs out of the way. In our practice, we talk in basic body function, and it's got to get some sleep. You got to shut your TV and your computer down once in a while, because when your mind is racing, your body physiology stays on race mode, and it can either be in race mode or it can be in healing mode, but it cannot be in both modes. So if we stay stuck on that fight or flight physiology, restoration becomes much more challenging. So we talk about posture because posture matters. If I'm giving away energy on muscular imbalance, if I see one shoulder higher than the other, and you see people sitting like this is a problem, because that says I'm giving away energy on postural distortion that doesn't belong. And that means that energy is being stolen from somewhere else in the system. So we got 100% of this energy necessary to keep us alive 100% of the time. If I'm wasting some of it on this, that means it's being stolen from somewhere else in the system. So the better my postural tone, the better I provide an information superhighway by way of my spine to carry information to and from my brain, that my brain can tell my guts and glands what to do in a way better format that lets them build the chemistry necessary, which is called the immune system, build the chemistry necessary to identify good guys from bad guys, target the ones that don't belong, overwhelm them, shove them through the system, the good guys get to stay. So we got to talk about, what am I eating and drinking? You know, what are the things that we know sabotage our health from a food standpoint? Sugar's going to sabotage our health. It always has, and it always will. Too much alcohol, too much caffeine, too much of anything is going to imbalance the system in a way that makes it really hard for it to continue to re-regulate itself. Does it need sleep? Of course it needs sleep. In fact, I think that the limitation of energy, I think, is how God lets us know we're not him. Like, he doesn't probably need sleep, I'm guessing, but he puts this mechanism into us that says you got to get a certain amount of rest every night or your machine's not going to run as well. So good sleep is important. Water, flushing crud through your pipes. You got to, I mean, these are just basic hygiene things for human health. So instead of targeting, you know, how do we get rid of disease? I think it would be maybe a different conversation to say, how do we increase or improve health? That's just my opinion. But if we would flip the conversation back to how do we maintain this package, it would be much more likely to come through any disease process with flying colors.
Well, you're so right. I mean, those steps were massively important, and they're so neglected by so many people. You know, in our communities and here in the United States, 30% of people are obese and over 60% are overweight. And that's been shown right now, looking at COVID, to be the #1 risk factor in causing death. Just as it winds up being a massive and even more significant risk factor in causing death for cardiovascular disease, cancer, and other health risk factors.
Right.
For me right now, I'm really hoping that when we come out of this, that so many people realize that I need to be responsible for my health.
Wait a minute, you mean the government's not going to fix that?
I know. They're gonna pay us all, and they're gonna give us lots of money, no matter who you are or what you are, or at least that's what they're gonna say. But then they're not gonna wind up taking care of you, because the key place that we need to wind up understanding is that the only person who is going to be concerned with and is responsible for our life and our livelihood winds up being ourselves.
Yeah, if you want to blame somebody, all you got to do is look in the mirror.
And
one of the concepts we talk about in our practice is that of body burden. So obesity is a great example of body burden. The things that we put in the body, the things that we put on the body, that's the thing I think a lot of people underestimate as well. If you can wear a patch to quit smoking, then you got to know that whatever goes on your skin is going in your system. If you can wear a patch to not get pregnant, or a patch to, manage pain, the thing that you've got to know is anything that goes on you is going in you. That includes makeup and hair care products and deodorant. So we're piling all this toxic garbage on our bodies and then wondering why they're breaking down. We feed them poorly. We're the most overfed, undernourished population on the planet. And so, like you mentioned, obesity is a challenge because it creates a burden on the body that makes it much, much more challenging to fend off things from the outside world. So healing doesn't come from the outside in. It's not about an outside in solution. The body regulates itself from the inside out. So we've got to start addressing the inside outedness of that if we want to actually come up with viable solutions for a long-term, a better system.
I think that that's really great. And I'll be honest with you, I've never really thought about the inside out perspective on the skin. That's really powerful. When we put things on our skin, we do wind up absorbing it. It gets assimilated into us. And then it winds up dictating whether we're going to be right or wrong.
Well, it disrupts the endocrine system. When you look at all those body sprays and deodorants, look at the ingredients in some of these things, and you got to understand, well, aluminum is in every deodorant, unless you're buying some kind of a more natural deodorant product. So body burden is just the amount of load that your system, your intelligence, your innate will tolerate before it begins to be sabotaged. So you just got to know that that includes things that go on you, not just in you. What's in my soap? What's in my shampoo? What's in my deodorant? What's in my eye makeup or my lipstick or whatever? When you dig some homework on that, it's really easy to see we need to make some change in just some of our everyday routine.
Hmm. Well, it
The
sounds
endocrine.
like you've come up with a pretty good system or way to wind up understanding some first steps to take. Because to me, I'm kind of hearing that this is a path to wind up walking.
Well, you got to decide. You know, the old phrase that pays is, if I keep doing what I've been doing, I should just keep expecting what I got now. If I want something different, I'm gonna have to do something different. And so whether that's correct, making better diet, being more careful with what you watch on your television or your computer. Holy moly. We're dumping stuff into this machine and then wondering why it doesn't fend off disease very well. And so you've got to be able to take care of your spirit. You've got to be able to take care of your physical body. You on it, because these are all normal brain information. If you, well, that's why they don't let people drink and drive. Chemistry changes brain function. And so beyond a certain point, you got to understand that could be a structural challenge. That could be a chemical challenge. It could certainly be an emotional challenge. Thoughts are things. They change the way the body responds to the world around it. So if I'm watching 24 hours of CNN and would I expect to make good choices with my food? Why would I expect to make good choices with what else I'm doing? I mean, this is not genius level stuff, but it seems to be pretty predominant right now.
It really does. It really does. It sounds like these ideas are needing to become more predominant and louder right now, especially just because we need more and better answers on how we not only wind up taking care of our own health, but the health of each other and the people in our lives that we wind up being connected to. Now, I typically wind up asking all of my guests, what are the 4 steps that you guide your patients on to live a happy, healthy life? And I'd love for you to share them with us.
Okay. So 4 things, and we kind of talked about it, but for me, the primary focus in our practice is corrective spinal. Got to be balanced. The nerve system has a happy place to live. The reason, everybody has their own version of what is chiropractic. In my version of chiropractic, corrective spinal care just means I'm providing enough restoration in that spine to allow normal transmission of signals to and from the brain. So we teach people that the spine is like the breaker box in their house. Power comes in now so mysteriously from the outside world, and then the wires take power through the house. You got these posters on the wall behind you. That's like the breaker box diagram. Generates all the information we need to stay alive. It's distributed through the spinal cord and the spinal nerves. When the spine's injured, there could be just a subtle shift in the way the bones lie. If they misalign enough to the point where they're bumping into the signals to and from the brain, something's going to go wrong for that person. And you can eat well, you can sleep well, you can drink well. If all I do is live in a twisted frame and I don't check it and address it, then it's going to be harder to live a better life. So corrective spinal care is always number 1. We do some nutritional counseling in my office. Lisa is our nutrient counselor. So if people desire a nutritional consultation, I don't do that. With them about how to change diet and lifestyle things and maybe change their supplement regimen or whatever nutrition wise. So you got to look at structure. You got to look at, we'll do, as I've got 2 people in the practice that are body code practitioners. So those, they address emotional things and spiritual things with people. So we're not just physical beings, we're chemistry, we're spirit, we're emotion. And so we try to address all of those things when we're talking about creating the optimal environment for people to kind of heal and get well in. Was that 4? I know you wanted 4. Structure, nutrients, emotional stability, and we try to make. You may pop into our office on a day where we're celebrating a holiday or the onset of baseball season or whatever. So we try to keep it fun in our practice. Healing and restoration can be fun. We do a lot of patient nights and a patient orientation things. Ladies' night. It's not unusual to have 40 or 50 women in our office with chocolate strawberries and our women's health workshop. So we try to keep it fun. We try to make sure it's educational and informative, just to build value into something that they're spending their own money to achieve and kind of set sail for the life they want.
I love it. I love those 4 things. That's absolutely perfect. We're going to do some celebrating tonight in my house, as you mentioned earlier.
Right.
Something special to me's birthday, so the party's already begun this morning. We'll bring it all the way through. Now, as we're looking to wrap up here, there's going to be two other questions that I ask you, but is there anything else you want to share with our listeners out there?
If we're always available, whether it's through Facebook, whether it's through the internet or my email. If you have questions or concerns, if you're new in practice, if you're old in practice, your listener group is, if you're just somebody who's looking for answers to health and well-being, we just want to make ourselves available. Like I said, if everybody does a little bit, I don't think everybody has to do a lot. But if we can be of service to your people in any way, shape, or form, we're happy to do it.
Awesome. So what I'll do is in the show notes, I'll be sure to include how would you like for people to reach out to you?
They can reach me directly on our Facebook page at Living Well Spine Center, a message through there. They can email me. My email is drT@livingwellspinecenter.com. It's probably best that I don't give you my cell phone number, because when you blast that into the internet, I'm going to get aluminum siding salesman calling me or whatever. But yeah, we're not hard to find. The other thing, Lisa and I, you mentioned author. Lisa and I wrote a book a couple of years ago, and it's called The Living Well Code. She just handed me a copy of our book. We will, I'll get a hold of her for this, but we'll make that available to your podcast listeners free of charge for the next 48 hours. So they can go onto Amazon.com and download a free copy of that book. It is 10 guiding principles to optimize your days and vitalize your life, the Living Well Code. So you'll learn a little bit more about us and hopefully some of the things that we didn't touch on here today.
I love it, and I'll look to connect with you on how to give that to our listeners out there. I'm sure that they'll appreciate and jump right onto that. The last things that I'd like to ask are, who is your chiropractor?
Currently?
Yeah.
Like, who takes care of me?
Uh-huh.
Dr. Greg Goff, my solid buddy for the last 25 years. We keep care of each other. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, and then the last question that I'm going to ask you is, whose chiropractic story do we need to share?
Say that one more time, because I lost about half of it.
Yeah. Whose chiropractic story do we need to share and add to the library?
Ooh. Right off the top of my head, and I'd have to see your library first, but if you haven't interviewed, oh my gosh, there are so many people that you could say, yeah, call that guy. I would call Dr. Piche. Piche. He's up in Traverse City, Michigan. One of my dearest friends. We graduated from chiropractic college together. Solid cat. He and his wife, Julie, are both chiropractors up in Traverse City, and I'm sure he'd love to share some time with you.
Awesome. I want to thank you so much. And with that, listeners, I want to thank you guys for joining us and listening as Dr. Terry shared with us not only his chiropractic story, but how since the age of 4, he's been introduced to chiropractic, and 4th grade, he's been introduced to chiropractic and absorbing and exploring the changes that it's provided for so many people, and how he's been changing the lives of people for over 30 years. Dr. Terry, I want to thank you for joining me on this episode. And for listeners out there, I want to thank you as well. If you enjoyed this, give it a thumbs up, give it a 5-star. Check us out on all the podcatchers that are out there. It's Real Chiropractic Stories. And if you've got a story to tell, please reach out to me anywhere you can. Facebook, Instagram, email, our website. I'd love to share your story, because what the world needs to understand is that their chiropractic can wind up helping people, whatever they come from and whatever their condition, to wind up living a more balanced, easier, more efficient, and more healthy life.